Hi, Eric. Welcome to our hard hat discussion. It's great to have a Cal Poly alumni come back and talk a little bit about their experience in the construction industry. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
To get us started, I was hoping you could just tell your story of how you got into the construction industry and maybe your favorite thing that has come from deciding to enter this field.
First off, thank you guys for having me, Cal Poly. Glad to tell my story here. Graduated from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in 2012. Been working with Clark Construction ever since. Had a great opportunity to get into the construction industry. It's kind of a funny story how we all fell on our path into the construction industry. I had an opportunity to play football at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My parents were always engineers, and when I got onto campus and started playing, the coach asked me, "So, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And Coach, I really don't know. I want to play football. And he goes, "Well, that's not going to work out for you. You got to pick a degree, pick a career." So, he said, "Well, what do you like to do?" And I was like, like being outside. I don't want to be in a suit. I don't want to be behind a desk. I'm good at math and science, and I really love the camaraderie of a football team. He pulled me aside and said, "You know what, son? I know the exact major for you to do. Try this construction management thing." I signed up and I never looked back and enjoyed every step of the way. Did my internships throughout Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and then just fell into construction with Clark. Did my internship going into my senior year, had the opportunity to shadow a superintendent, saw his the ins and outs of his day, and I realized I really pictured myself doing what he did. And I really enjoyed that experience. And then when I got into Cal Poly or into Clark, we have a program set up where it's a little bit of a rotation. I had the opportunity to do a project engineer, field engineer, safety manager, dive into all those aspects. And then it really solidified, I want to be a superintendent. And that's how I fell into it and carved my journey.
Could you share I know you just mentioned how you were in Clark for the internship, but then could you talk about your career path once you left Cal Poly? Was it always Clark and always superintendent, or just how did that experience go for you?
So it was always Clark. Got into it right out of the gates, went into the field, had an opportunity to work the Long Beach court building, and had managed all the build out for the courtrooms in that project as a 23-year-old fresh out of school. Had the opportunity to dive into the field. Once I really got my feet wet, I was like, I love it. I want to do it. Clark pulled me in and said, "Hey, how about you try this project engineering side? Deal with the RFIs, deal with the money, deal with the trade management." And then I went that direction. Got my experience there. I said, again, it was hold on. You need to be this well-rounded builder. Now let's look at safety. How can we plan our work to be safe and effective and efficient, and how do we make ourselves better as a company? So I did the safety rotation there. After hitting all three aspects, again, it solidified, I want to be a superintendent. I want to be a safe superintendent, and I want to be have attention to detail going forward and how we build on the office side as well. So it exposed me to all those aspects, and I realized that's why I wanted to be a superintendent, because that's where I felt like my niche was. We look at everything we do safety first. We have to have our eye on safety. We plan our work with the intent to be safe. Our job is we manage the work and we put our tradespeople in situations to do their job. And at the end of each day, they need to make sure that they are safe so that they can go home to their families and be there for their families. So it's our responsibility to put them in situations where they can be successful and safe. And that's how I took safety into running work.
You just mentioned how you want everybody to get home safe. I know that in construction, there are long days, and I was just wondering, for you, what's the key to having a good work-life balance and making sure that you have time after work?
Construction is a very demanding industry. There's no doubt about it. what I've found most successful, where I've felt like I've had the most balance, I'll give you guys a little piece of advice. As a young coming out of school, what I would recommend is you want to try and live as close as you can to that project. Eliminate that commute. I worked in Southern California, and commutes are inevitable. You're going to have them. So if you can put yourself in a position to live and work close to the job where you're only commuting 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you get so much time back in your day, and you can really enjoy being around the job. And I felt like when I've done that, I've had the most work-life balance. Second is I like to set up a routine. I like to have a routine where, I pick a hobby. Mine for a long time was I would work out in the morning before I go into the job. That really set up my work-life balance, in which I set goals in the workforce, and then also for myself outside of school or outside of work.
What was the hardest part for you transitioning from being a Cal Poly student into the workforce?
You're a freshman all over again, in which you start at the bottom of the ladder, and you have to work your way up, and you learn, and you have to climb that ladder. That was the hardest transition. You come out of Cal Poly, you feel like you're on the top of the world. You go into workforce, and it's not a bad thing, but you are the youngest person in that trailer. Be a sponge, soak it up, be eager to learn, and do your best. That's was the biggest challenge, is kind of getting knocked off of that pedestal, coming out of graduation on top of the world, and then you're coming back in as the freshman once again. So that was the biggest challenge there. And then all on top of that is, putting that work in. When you get to your senior in the construction management department, you have to put that time in, put that work in to climb the ladder. Same thing in the workforce. Nothing's easy, nothing's given, and you have to put the time in to get to the top. You really have to make that effort. You get out what you put in.
Has there been anybody along the way that's really helped you make that transition and given you confidence to put the work in and go that extra mile?
What I've always tried to do is have mentors, people that have gone through it, people that I can bounce ideas off of, people that can mentor me. I look for qualities in someone that I feel in myself. So I always try and set up mentors, and I was lucky. I had mentors within Clark that I could rely on, and I actually fell back on my Cal Poly football coach. I would call from time to time to deal with situations that I was in. I relate a lot to the workforce, to sports. It's that competition, it's that drive, it's the trials and tribulations of a sporting event. It's very similar to what we do day in and day out in the workforce. There was a time when one of my mentors, would always tell me, he said, Erich, if you're feeling a certain way and you're unhappy, come to me. Let's make this right. Let's figure out a way so that we can push you in the right direction. He was also my superior, but there was that trust in to come to him if there was any issue of what I was experiencing.
I know a lot of students are interested in going the superintendent route instead of the PE route recently, and I was just wondering if you could talk about your experience with that and why you chose that route instead of the PE one.
I like being the leader of the operations out there. I like everyone being able to come to me with their questions, and then me distributing that information. Having a plan, sticking to my plan, and following through with that plan. That was something that I really enjoyed. The leadership aspect of running work in the field. It's tough when you're a 23, 24-year-old student coming in to lead grown men and women out there. And the challenge there is, you ask yourself, are they going to respect me? What do I have to do to prove to them? And what you do is know your details, know your drawings, and be reliable. Have that follow through. When someone asks you to do something, ask for help, follow through and give that to them. And once you establish that trust, they'll do the same for you. That's kind of knocks down that barriers for me, is being that reliable employee that people can count on to give them the information, give them the plan, and allow them to be successful.
What project are you on currently? You were saying you have to check the details and all that. I just want to get a feel for what type of project you're on right now.
So the project that I am on is a 144 patient bed, 5-story patient tower. So that's a new build off of the existing hospital.
Typically, how many laborers or people on site are there that you are in charge of as a superintendent?
For my project on this job, I'm directly probably oversee about 400 people on the patient tower currently.
How do you deal with that and make sure that you have control over the entire labor force and make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be? Do you have any advice on that?
You know, it's setting up a plan, communicating that plan, and then following through. And you know, what I like to do is have that personable relationship from the journeyman to the apprentice. I was challenged once with Clark. It was $100. I have to know if my boss went and picked out 10 people on that job site, any 10, I have to know each and every one of their names. And then on the flip side, they have to know your name. Because when you're the superintendent on the project, everyone should know your name. And if you know your people that work for you, you should know all their names. So I was 9 out of 10. One of the guys didn't know my name. So I didn't get the $100, but it was a good challenge. And, you know, I've always remembered that. And I really practiced to know every single person's name.
I feel like you should have got $90, you know, 90%. That's an A, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, is there any other things that you feel like you want to let the students know about the industry or yourself before we kind of wrap this interview up?
What I always like to resort to are kind of old school tendencies, you know, having that relationship with the people you work around. My advice is don't hide behind email. You know, if you have something important to tell somebody, you know, send the email, but then go follow up with them in person. Say, hey, bud, did you see what I sent you? This is my issue. This is our challenge. How can we get through this? You know, it's really easy nowadays to be able to sit behind the computer and fire stuff out. But if you really want to get something done, you know, go up to somebody, have that handshake, talk to them, and make sure that your message is being heard. That's the best way, is have that follow through in person.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know that was very beneficial for me. And then hopefully when students watch this, they get to hear some of your advice as a superintendent and maybe identify with your story a little bit. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the Cal Poly Construction Management Program. This was an awesome hard hat discussion. Thank you, Erich.
I'll leave you with this last thing, you know, go Cal Poly, ride high, and good luck in the Reno competition. Bring it home again this year. We're always rooting for you.
Yeah.